What is good, YouTube? Quinn Wade coming to y'all with that rundown on the entire NBA and where it stands right now. If you're new to the rundown or you're new to the channel, it's just me talking about each and every team, giving what I feel about them as the season has got to this point so far, which is January 3rd. A couple months, October, November, December has went by. Teams are starting to show what they are, what they're trying to do, and teams are already picking the tank or going that direction, and teams are looking to make moves within this month, next month to bolster their roster. And as of now, Cleveland is the team that has the best record so far in the NBA at 29-4. They have won their last 8 games in a row, and they are 9-1 in their last 10. They have played excellent defense. They have great ball movement. They have great scorers and playmakers, and they found a way to make the bigs work well with each other while not getting in each other's way, while playing the right way of basketball and being disciplined even defensively and improving their shot selection offensively compared to prior years of this team being together. They're still young. They still have a lot of potential. They still have a lot more growth, and they still understand the game of basketball is going to be a challenge each and every night. But they have defeated the most teams, and they have played the best basketball out of any team this entire year. And it's really good to see a young team thrive the way that they have been thriving and have been playing. And they also 6-0 in their division. They're 20-4 in their conference. They're 17-1 at home. They're 12-3 away. It's rare to see this team lose a game, and this is how it's been the entire season so far. So we know that this team is something serious. We know that they really about what they're about. And on top of that, it's nothing really bad or anything critical that you can say about this team. Is that can they continue to keep going, and can they continue to stay healthy like they have been for majority of this year? And it's not questions, it's just how the game is. So the Cavaliers have done everything they have needed to do to stay at the top of the NBA. And if they continue this, they can lock up the number one team and the number one record in the NBA and have home court advantage throughout the entire playoffs, which they can use to their advantage because they have one of the best home crowds. And like I said, they also are 17-1, so they have been taking care of home anyway and dominating teams in different ways is why this team has been so special and why they have stood out. And I have to start with them. Number two, Boston. They have been the opposite of Cleveland. They've been trying out different lineups. They've been resting some of their guys. They've been trying to find a way to keep everybody balanced and everybody getting opportunity, everybody getting chances. They still defend well. They still score well. They're blowing out their fair share of teams. They're outplaying a lot of teams. They don't look like the team that they were last year because we haven't really seen their starters play a lot together this year. But they're just focusing on the big picture, and they're focusing on how to stay level-headed and how to respect their opponents and how to still show them that they're better when they go out there and play. And I just think it's fair. Like the Celtics haven't really done anything crazy, but they still have shown that they're one of the best teams in the NBA. They have beat the Cavaliers already this year, so they show that they can compete with them. They can beat them. They're on their level, if not a little bit better. Because when Cleveland did beat the Celtics, they was missing some major players, Celtics-wise, in that game, and Cleveland had to handle their business and still win it anyway if they want to finish number one, which they still are. So the Celtics, they haven't put all their cards on the table. They haven't pushed all their chips in. Seem like they're just going through the season, coasting through it, keeping a respectable game, keeping a respectable level of talent out on the court, and still trying to find a way to win games while resting their players for the playoffs so they can make their big push to try to win championship number two and go back to back for the first time since the Warriors. New York Knicks, they have been phenomenal. They won their last 9 games. They're 9-1 in their last 10 games, just like the Cavaliers. The only difference is they got off to a rocky, slow start, as we expected, because they had new pieces and new guys that they had to find a way to fit and find a way for them to play together and understand where they're going to be at, understand what they're going to do. And their defense got off to a tough start too. They wasn't defending the same way. They was giving up a lot of threes, a lot of drives. They wouldn't get the best rim protection. Towns was getting in a lot of foul trouble. Now they're slowing down. They're communicating better. They're continuing to show that they're interested. They feel like they have enough. They like what they have, even coming off the bench. They still have guys like Mitchell Robinson that hasn't even contributed really this season either. And that just shows you that they have another level that they can still get to as a team. And that's why they won their last 9, is because they're showing you that this is one of the best teams in the East. A lot of us thought that they would be, especially after that Towns trade that put them over the top. And it has shown. 24-10 is a really good record. You 14 games above 500. You showing that you can beat anybody any given night, even the best teams in the league. Now it's just about making sure you stay healthy as much as you can and continue to win games so you can get the right matchups to play the right games that you need to give your best chances of winning the championship this year a full go. So I like what I'm seeing out the Knicks. I'm liking what they're doing defensively a little bit more. I'm liking how potent their offense is. They have a duo that's virtually unstoppable, and they complement each other, and they play well off of each other. And I think that that's good to see. And it's something that's reality for them, and it's not a dream. It's not a pipe dream. New York basketball is back now, and we should all enjoy that and see what they can really do as the season continues and what they can do in the playoffs. Orlando Magic, they still going through their injury pains. They're 4-6 in their last 10. They lost their last game, but no Paulo, no Franz, and they're still getting it done, and they're still defending well without them too. Guys like Tristan Da Silva have stepped up. Jalen Suggs have stepped up. Um, their bigs have stepped up, and it sucked to see Mo Wagner go down too with a major injury. Another big part of what they are and what they do, even if he comes off the bench. And they just had an injury-riddled season, but they haven't gave up hope that they can still turn it around as they still winning games. They're still 4th in their conference. They still will have home court advantage in the first round if they continue this, but they have made no excuses. They have played very hard, and they still can do certain things that we didn't expect them to do after the injuries, and they still feel like we're not going to tank this season. We're not going to give up on the season. We're going to play with our pride. We're going to play together. We're going to go out there and compete and try to beat any team, even if we don't have our best players. And they have been able to do that so far this season. And they have the right mentality if you're trying to build something special, even with your role players and even with your stars being able to watch. This is something that you want to see. And then they can play better and have more confidence when they stars come back. And then they can hopefully play off of each other better and have more respect for each other better, because they have been competing against some good teams too, as Paulo and Franz been out. So they haven't had the best season, but they haven't had a terrible season, and they making the best out of their season, even though they was getting a lump of coal basically the whole year. So I love what they have been able to do. I love what they have been able to be at as a team, and I love their coaching with Jamal Mosley. Still feeling like he has to step his game up and show them that he believes in them, he trusts them, and he know that they can still get the job done against any team. They just have to prepare more, they have to scout more, and they just have to be more ready, because they can't make as many mistakes, because they just don't have that same takeover ability or that reliable option when things go bad. They just have to weather the storm as much as they can to be able to win games, and that's why they're 4-6 in the last 10 games. The Milwaukee Bucks, they lost their last one. They're 6-4 in their last 10. They have been a mediocre team sometimes. They haven't really been the defensive team that they used to be. They have been a lot better offensively lately than they was in the beginning of the season. This still is one of them teams where you have to respect them because they have Giannis. You know he can take over a game. You know he can dominate the game defensively if he wants to. He's the biggest what if in the Eastern Conference, because he is one of the best players in the league, top 3. And that's always going to be something dangerous to any team and against any opponent, because you don't have a way to stop them. And that's always a key to success, especially when you have Dame as the number 2 option, and there's no real way to stop him. You can only force him to take tough shots and live by that. And if he's knocking those down, then you're going to be in trouble. But Middleton looks like he can still be a good weapon for him. He can pass, he can score, he can slow the game down, and he can play from the post, or he can just play as a ball handler. And then you have Brook Lopez. He's still a long, big body that can space the floor and set screens. Bobby Portis has been really good this year, scoring, spacing the floor, still scoring in the post and in the paint. And then they have guys like Garen Trent Jr. He's been playing better off the bench than when he was a starter. And then they just have guys that's trying harder and doing more compared to when they started the season in October and November. They have pulled almost a whole 360, but that just comes with familiarity. They playing more together. They're seeing things happen more. They communicating how they can change things, how they can improve things, how they can change their mentality about going through things, and that's what a team's supposed to do through an 82 game season. Now it's just about, can they continue to stay healthy, and can they improve their defense, and can they continue to be a great offensive team that teams have trouble slowing down. If they can continue to do both of those, they're going to be one of the best teams in the East. They started off 3-8 and stuff like that. They fully became a team above 500, and now they needs to always have their head above that line of, we're better than a bad team. We're at least a great team at our best, and that's close to being a contender. We can still get to that level now that Middleton is back healthy, and as he continues to play himself back into shape, play himself back into the way that he wants to play and how his style is, and he's still showing that he fits what the Bucks are trying to do. This team can still be dangerous, as we know that they could be. Now they just got to get back on the winning streak and improve their record and possibly pass up the Magic, who has been a team that just as good as them when healthy, if not a little bit better, because they defend, but their offense can be a little clunky, and the Bucks can be a little smoother because Dame and Giannis and Middleton complement each other very well. And they both of those players can space out the floor for Giannis, even Brook Lopez, even Taurean Prince, even Gary Trent Jr. And that allows Giannis to have his own playground in the paint. And with that mid-range jump shot going, it's going to be even tougher to stop him, because now you got another move that you got to pick your poison on. And he has been also trusting and playing well, playmaking wise too. If he doesn't have a shot that he likes, he's giving it to his teammates, and they getting open looks, and they are knocking them down. Miami Heat, it's going to be tough to judge this team because the trade deadline might see Jimmy Butler out of Miami. Pat Riley has said he doesn't have no plan to trade him. The best ideal is to keep him because he's older, so you're not going to really get a great return for him trade-wise. And they already a team that's barely a playoff team. They have lost their last game. They're 5-5 in their last 10 games, and they're 7-9 away. They're 10-6 at home. That really has helped them. But they're 11-11 in their conference. They are barely a good team this year, and Jimmy Butler hasn't even been playing his best basketball. That's another way to say they're not going to get another return either, because if your best player is available to trade, not playing his best basketball, not really doing what the team needs him to do, and he has a bad attitude about it, and he hasn't really been playing, well when it comes to professional and leadership, those are qualities that he's not showing. That makes his value even lower, because if things get worse, you think you can just jump out and leave every time you want to. Teams are not going to really be committed to trading for you if you're not going to be committed to them. And I just think that is just a bad look. But when it comes to how they play, Tyler Hero has stepped up. Bam has been scoring just a little bit better and rebounding just a little bit better. But they don't really have a crazy amount of positives. But besides, they've been beating the teams that they should and beating good teams every once in a while. It's enough good and bad teams, especially in the Eastern Conference, to beat up on to be a good team that's good enough to make the playoffs. If they can stay a team that's not in the play-in tournament, they still a team that you got to respect, because they can play up to a level, and they do have a great coach that's going to have them prepared in every situation, and they can be a tough out. But other than that, the Heat are what they are. They doing the same things they usually do. They just getting beat out by better teams, as the East have gotten better at the top, and they haven't really made any significant changes or adjustments to their team. So they are what they are, and they are what they've been. They just getting older, and they just getting more tired of each other, more frustrated with each other, because they're not really gaining that success that they usually have, around this time. And injuries have really hurted them in the past too. And they have been more healthier than they have been in previous years. But we still have a lot of games left. And if Jimmy Butler going to continue to play the way he's been playing, this team might be a playoff team, but they just not gonna have that same mentality, which is we can beat anybody. We're a team that are all about heat culture because the culture has been shown to be a winning culture, and what they believe in and what they do rubs off on their players. Maybe that friction can go away, but as of now, and based on what I heard yesterday, if they lose their best player and get small pieces in return, the Heat can still probably be a play-in team, but that's also a disappointing season to what they thought that they would be. But I didn't think the Heat was going to be that amazing and that good anyway, just based off the fact that it's either you're a championship contender or you're not. And I just looked at them as a team that wasn't, honestly, and that's why this season could be looked at as a washed or a wasted season, because honestly, even the Heat fans know that this team doesn't have enough to win a championship. That's why they came up short the other two times they made it to the final. They close to being good enough, but they needed a little bit more push and a little bit more killers on that roster, and maybe they get it done against Denver or the Lakers. But it didn't happen, and now they're in a reality where they're only getting older and not getting better, and that's the problem with the Heat. The Atlanta Hawks, they have been one of the most slept on teams. Obviously, they was 5-5 in their last 10. They lost their last game too, but Trae Young has really been happier. He's really enjoying the fact that they built a team with strong, fast wings that can defend and shoot the three ball and space the floor, so he can do his little dribble things and get the floaters and get the layups and kick it out to them, have them picking pockets and playing in passing lanes and getting out in transition and spacing the floor even in transition for threes or going up for layups and dunks. They also can pump fake and put the ball on the floor and get to the free throw line or get to the layup lines or dunks. Jalen Johnson has been absolutely amazing to watch. He's averaging 20, 10, and 5, has really shown that he can handle the ball, make plays, rebound, score at an efficient level while not taking tough shots. He just has a high basketball IQ. He's the perfect player to put in tandem with Trae Young because he has size, and he also can do the playmaking that Trae Young can't do when he doesn't have the ball in his hands. And that's what they really needed, was another decision maker slash ball handler. And now they got a young one that's very, very interesting. And I like that their defense isn't the greatest, isn't the best, but it complements what Trae Young weaknesses are. And they have built a team that is going to be competitive and tough to beat. And they have shown that throughout this season. You actually have to come to play when you go against the Atlanta Hawks, or they will embarrass you, or they will light you up. And that's what they have proven, and that's what they have done this year. And they're 18-16, and they're 2 games above 500. And most people didn't think that they would be this way coming into the season, but they have proven that they are one of the better teams in the East, and they have proven that can stay healthy. And if they continue to do that, they might just be a legit team in the playoffs. Indiana, they've been hit or miss, but they have a lot of talent. And they have a coach that believes in that talent, and Rick Carlisle. And they're not the greatest defensive team. They're still not as good as they were last year offensively. But Tyrese Halliburton has had big games. He has had bad games. He has had good games. Siakam has just been steady Freddy. He's going to get his rebounds. He's going to score. He's going to be efficient. He's been great at shooting a three-pointer this year. Benedict Mathurin, he was getting a little bit unstoppable at first, and now he has hit a little bit of a wall offensively compared to how he was playing earlier in the season. Teams are starting to figure out what he doesn't like to do, what he does like to do, and have been forcing him to switch it up a little bit more offensively. He hasn't really made the counters yet, but they also seen Tyrese Halliburton get a little bit more hotter lately, and we just had to see if he can keep that up, which he hasn't really proven this season. He's been hit or miss. And then Miles Turner, 1 minute he rebounds great, 1 minute he doesn't, 1 minute he wants to score more, 1 minute he doesn't. They have one of the ghostiest teams in the league. 1 minute you see them, 1 minute you don't. 1 minute they playing this way, 1 minute they're not. And that's just how they've been. And when you're 17 and 18, it just shows you that you aren't the team that you thought you was going to be. They thought that they was going to come back and have a better run this year based off how they ended last year, which is in the Eastern Conference Finals. And they were showing you that they can possibly be one of the better teams in the East. Well, that didn't really work out this year. They didn't really make no major changes or no major adjustments, and teams are just prepared for what they're going to do. And that's one of the biggest reasons why they're 17 and 18, and why they're 7-3 is because they played against some teams that they should be able to beat, or they wasn't fully healthy and they was able to beat up on them. But they did lose their last. I mean, they did win their last game, and they are also 9-12 away from home, and they're also 10-7. Well, they're 8-6 at home, and they're also 10-14 in the conference, which isn't a great thing. Detroit Pistons, they had brought in guys like Malik Beasley and Tobias Harris to help with the floor space and to help Cade be able to dribble and handle the ball a little bit more and make decisions the way he wants to. And he's hitting his mid ranges, he's hitting his threes, he's getting to the basket, he's giving up the ball. He's liking the team that they built around him. He's feeling that this is the team that he wanted. It's not the greatest team, it's not the best built team, but it complements what their stars do very well. And that's one thing that's good to see. And it's also proven to be something that good to have, because they already passed the win total of what they had done last year. Last year they won 14 games. This year they already had 15 games, and they only 3 games away from being 500, 4 games away from being above 500, and they have been in a lot of close games because they have matched up well against other teams, and they have played well in this entire season. They haven't been able to close games, they haven't been able to win games the way that they should, but they also have shown that they aren't afraid of teams and they feel like they can beat teams, and that's not something that they was really showing the last couple seasons with Cade compared to this year. And if they can continue to have this type of confidence and they can continue to play their game, and they actually have a style of play now, they actually have a brand of basketball that they can trust now. And Jaden Ivey and guys like Jalen Duran are showing their maturity, and they're showing that they're willing to commit and do whatever it takes to make this team better. And they have been healthy for the most part. This team is actually showing that they can be dangerous. They're 6-4 in their last 10. They won their last game. They're 11-14 in the conference. They're 1-5 in the division that they're in. They're 9-10 away from home. They're 6-8 at home. They're a couple games away from being above 500 team, and even in those records. So they're earning their respect. They under their place in the NBA, and in the playing tournament is a something that most of us didn't see them doing coming into the season, and is reality, something that can be a possible goal that they can complete based off how they've been playing and how we done seen them do their thing. They can be good enough to actually be in the play-in by the end of the season. I believe it. Chicago Bulls, they have been a team too that they can be tough to defend. They can be tough to guard. They can be tough to prepare for, because a lot of their players are playing above their head and been doing better than what most people seen them doing, and it's been consistent for the most part. I know they're 15-19. I know they're 5-5 in their last 10. I know they lost their last game, but they're 13-12 in the conference. They're 10-8 away from home, and at home they're 5-11. That's been a problem, but we knew that the Bulls wasn't going to be a great team just based off their roster and how they played last year. But they have guys that's willing to go out there and do whatever it takes to win, even if it's making tough shots. They have Kobe White for that. They have Zach LaVine for that. Josh Giddey has shown to be a long, athletic body that can rebound and pass and get to the basket and hit some shots from the perimeter. They have guys that they thought their career was over and they took gambles on, like Taylor Horton-Tucker or Alonzo Ball. They're trying to find ways to help this team on and off the court, and I think that that's a good thing. Vucevic has been having one of his better seasons offensively, and people didn't really see that coming, but it's a reality thing for that too. And I like what the Bulls have been about this year. And even though they haven't had the greatest record, they have beat some of the better teams. They have shown that they can really go out there and shoot the three ball well, and they can get hot or they can make shots. They can beat anybody. And that's why they're in the play-in conversation right now. The Philadelphia 76ers, they lost their last two. They also are 6-4 in their last 10. They're 10-10 in the conference. This is a tough team to evaluate because they have had so many injuries in the beginning of the season to Paul George and to Maxey and to Embiid. Embiid is still in and out of the lineup, and he's claiming that that's going to be consistently a thing this year. Last year, he only played 39 games. I don't think he can do that in the Eastern Conference this year, and the team can still be successful. They just had him back against Golden State and still got blown out. I think that that's going to be a recurrent problem with this team this year, is that they can't really build the chemistry that's needed to beat the better teams because they just haven't defended well, they haven't scored well, and they haven't played like they liked each other enough. They look like they just respect each other, and they're just going to go out there and play because that's what they have to do. And that's not how you win in the league. The Brooklyn Nets, they have made decisions that have been questionable in the beginning of the season. Now they have picked a direction of retooling. Then they picked it that they wanted to rebuild. And their team has still been a team that has a lot of life in them, and they just don't want to quit. They just want to play their game of basketball. And that has resulted in more wins than people thought that they would get. And they are 3-7 in their last 10. They won their last game. They're 7-17 in the conference. They're 1-6 in the division. They're 8-12 away from Brooklyn. They're 5-9 in Brooklyn. And I like what they have done. As a team that's not going to be very good this year, they still show that they got a lot of good pieces on their roster, a lot of guys that can be great complementary players on their roster, and have a lot of interest around the league. So I do expect them to trade some more players and continue to find a way to lose more. But I also like the fact that they have guys that still go out there and compete each and every night. Like, they want to stay in the league as long as they can, and they're willing to show that if you want me, I'm going to play this same way, if not better, because I'm going to be in a better situation and have better players around me. That's what you want to see out of a team. You don't want to see them quitting or being frustrated or being angry or just doing whatever they tend to lose. You want to see them fight for their career, and that's what they have, a bunch of players like that on this team, and that's why they still been having a little bit of success. The Toronto Raptors, they have been terrible this year. They just got blown out by over 50. That's not ever good to see. They're 8-26 on the season. They're 1-9 in their last 10. Ironically, they won their last game. They have some bad records across the board. They just don't have enough talent. They have a lot of young guys that's still learning, still growing, still trying to understand the game, still trying to get comfortable and acclimated with the NBA season and in the NBA game in general, and how it's played, how the athletes are, how fast it is, how hard it is to defend. And guys just can't make enough plays, and guys just can't make enough shots, and they just can't stay healthy enough to show that they're a better team than they really are. It's sad, it's unfortunate, but it's reality for them, and there's nothing they can really do about it but still try to go out there and compete to the best of their ability. The Charlotte Hornets, they have had injuries to Brandon Miller and LaMelo Ball. Mark Williams missed a big chunk of the season, same with Miles Bridges to a certain extent, and they never really had a crazy roster. It was always top heavy, but even their best players don't really compare to the best players in the NBA when you look at the top of the Eastern and Western conferences. So they actually need a lot more talent, especially on that bench. If they're going to want to win more games, they have to be more committed and more disciplined defensively if they're going to win more games in the future. This is a tough place to coach because you know you don't have enough, but you have to give them belief that they can be better and they can play better even if it's next year, and they have to buy into that, knowing that they see themselves getting blown out each and every game throughout the season, or they find themselves losing too many games and they get mad and angry because they want to win, and then they got to figure out how tough it is to win. But some of these guys been on this roster so long and they still haven't been able to win, that it's going to always be tough to sing that same song, knowing that it never gets old because they're in the same predicament, in the same situation that they have been in for about 4 to 5 years. So it's tough to win in this league. It's tough to compete in this league, and it's tough to get the results that you want because nobody's going to give it to you. And the Hornets are just learning that, just like the Wizards, the hard way. And the Wizards have a bunch of talent and a bunch of guys that you heard of or you know about, but they also don't play well together. They don't fit well together. Um, you just have a bunch of guys just jacking up shots and just trying to find a way to get their numbers. And that's what the Wizards have been doing. They don't compete together. They don't play together. They don't play great together. And they have shooting issues, spacing issues, and they just have a mess of an offense and defense right now. And this is what you get when you have a bunch of young talent and a bunch of unproven talent and a bunch of guys trying to prove some things still in the NBA. They're not really doing the same things together. And that's one of the reasons why they have been one of the worst teams in the league, even though they have signs of having a little bit of talent and they show that they can beat teams throughout the season or stay on their level a little bit, but they always fall off a little bit or trend a little bit down, and that's a reason why they lose a lot of games. The Oklahoma City Thunder, for the Western Conference, we're going to start off with them. They're 28-5 so far at the recording of this video. They won 13 games in a row, which means they was 10-0 in their last 10, or you can say they was 13-0 in their last 10. They've been winning that many games. They're 19-5 in their conference, 5-1 in the division, 13-3 away from home, 15-2 at home. And the Thunder have really been blazing teams. Shai Gilgeous has been the MVP caliber player the last 2 seasons. He's been getting to the basket. He's been hitting his fadeaway. He's been hitting his leaning shot. He's been working on his pull-up three off the dribble. Those been dropping. Those been falling. He's taking over games. Jalen Williams has still shown that he's a good defender. Very athletic body. Really can score in the mid-range. Can score in the three-point shots. He can actually get to the basket too and be a good free throw shooter. They still don't have Chet Holmgren right now, but Isaiah Hartenstein hasn't been no slouch either as a scorer and as a rebounder and as a screen setter. And this team really understands what they're trying to do and how to play their game and how to make things uncomfortable for other teams and how to really be disruptive. It's not too much things you can say about the Thunder because they're playing similar to what they had done last year. It's just they have more guys contributing that can actually play and make a difference, and that's why they have been so good this year. The Memphis Grizzlies have been a funny team like the Celtics where they don't always play their best players, but they still win even without their best players, and it's really hard to do that, but they're one of the best teams at doing it. So you see them be a great defensive team, but you see them also scoring enough baskets to win the games. Then you wonder, like, dang, they didn't have this guy. I wonder what happened if they always was healthy. I wonder what happened if guys went out this game, but they still get it done, even though they realize that they are the number 2 team in the Western Conference, and they know that they're one of the best teams, and they know they're going to be a tough team to beat, but we just haven't seen enough of them having their best players out for a long period of time. But it just seems like it doesn't matter because they're just that good of a team. They're one game win streak because they lost their other one, and now they back with a win. But they're also 7-3 in their last 10. They're 10-8 in the conference. They're 2-2 in their division. They're 9-7 away from home. They're 14-4 at home. And the Grizzlies has just been one of the best teams this entire year. Whether they're healthy, whether they have their best players or not, they still figure out how to get it done and still figure out how to win games. And that has been one of the most impressive things about this team this year. The Houston Rockets, they had finished 500 last year. They have basically the same roster as they did last year. Team is just playing better, playing smarter, and they know what they really want to do each and every time they go out on the court, and they are committed to playing their brand and their style on the defensive end and on the offensive end. And they're knocking down shots, they're making plays, they're playing better defensively, and they're just showing the overall maturity that's needed to take a step up in a tough conference in the West. And they're 22-11. They're also 7-3 in their last 10. They also won their last game. They're 14-8 in the conference, 7-1 in the division, 10-6 away from home, and 12-5 at home. they really just been going at it against any team and beating any challenger that's in front of them. They still have to beat teams like Memphis and OKC and teams like Boston and Cleveland to prove that they're a contender. Nobody's really giving them a credit as a contender because they are young and they do have to prove that they can do things in the playoffs, as they haven't made the playoffs as a group just yet. But that will only give them more experience and help them grow as a team and play better. And that will be something that we all look forward to. But nobody's really surprised that they're a playoff team this year based off how last season ended. Ime has been a great coach, holding them accountable, teaching them how to play the game the right way, showing them what they doing wrong and showing them how to improve on things. And that's what really got this team better. But mentally, they're seeing the game better. They're thinking the game better. They're playing the game better than they ever have just as individuals. And that just makes the team better because they have the proper understanding of what to do and what not to do and how to play basketball the right way. And that's what you're seeing why they have been such a totally different team compared to 2 years ago. And one coach can make all the difference to the right set of players. And if they can listen and if they can pay attention, you can get this type of results out of young teams. And Houston Rockets and Memphis and OKC are the perfect example of that. Now, the Denver Nuggets have the best player in the league and the leading MVP voter getter, Nikola Jokic. They are 19 and 13. They have had their fair share of injuries this year, but they still have been able to defeat a lot of competition. This year, they won their last 3 games. They're 7 and 3 in their last 10. They're 4 and 3 in the division, 12 and 9 in the conference. They're 9 and 8 away from Denver, and they're 10 and 5 at home. So we're seeing Denver do a lot of things well offensively. They're scoring. They're getting out in transition. They still shoot a decent amount of threes and they make them at a decent clip. And Jokic just is the guy that's always going to make them tough to defeat because you have no answer to him. Either he's going to score an assist or he's going to score a bunch of points and dominate on the boards. And it just take a little bit of help here and there for them to be able to beat any team. It's a lot of teams that's not on the level of Denver, and them the teams they've been beaten up on, and you have to do that to have a good record. Their record is above average, and I would say that they are still a team you got to pay attention to, you got to watch out for because of those facts I just listed off. And this is a team that if you don't come prepared, they can still play hard and stay really disciplined against you. And they cut, they shoot, they get layups, and they can also shoot free throws to a certain extent. This is a tough team to beat, and you have to come prepared. And if not, they can beat you just like any other team in the league. They just do it a little bit slower, and they always going to be in close-ish games, but they still have a guy that can push them over the top, and that's what makes them different. The Dallas Mavericks, they have been improving in December and also in November because they was healthier, but Luka went down again. So they lost their last 3 games, making them 4 and 6 in their last 10. They also now are 14 and 12 as a recording of this video. 4 and 2 in their division, 10 and 9 away, 10 and 5 at home. They have a team that is very athletic with Gafford and David Lively. They also have Klay Thompson playing better now. Kyrie has been a little banged up because he has to carry a larger load because there's no Luka, and he's just getting a little bit too old for that. His body just not going to hold up the way that it used to. It's not going to heal as fast as it used to, and same with Klay. And this team has a lot of talent. They have a good enough defense. They have a good enough offense to beat up on every team that they need to. And they also show that they can compete against the better teams. And they also shown that they're not as good as some of the better teams. So I would call them more of a pretender, but they're still a dangerous team because Luka can make that much of a difference when he has a guy like Kyrie by his side and have a sniper with Klay and a good inside presence that can protect the paint and also dominate the paint, because this team can be so unselfish. They get a little bit too pass happy to the paint, and it comes to be a disadvantage because you can see it coming, but they also do play unselfish more compared to other Dallas Maverick teams built around Luka in the past. The Lakers, they are now 19 and 14. They're 7-3 in their last 10. They won their last game, just like the other teams. It seemed like, ain't that crazy? They're 16-7 in the conference, 6-2 in the division, 8-9 away from home, and 11-5 at home. And I like what I've been seeing out of them. They have been relying a lot on AD and LeBron as their highest paid players. They're the franchise pillars to what makes this a building that's worth going to visit and see. LeBron is still finding that 3-point shot. He's still getting to the paint. He's still facilitating. Anthony Davis is having an MVP caliber season because he's used more in the offense, and he's still a great defender and rebounder. Austin Reeves has stepped up his playmaking ability. They still have some games where Miles Christie or Rui Hachimura or Dorian Finney-Smith or a Shea Milton may hit shots here. Dalton Connect might step up here and there. Shea Milton may step up here and there, and you never really know who's going to be there outside of Anthony Davis and LeBron, and that's one of their biggest flaws is they're not the greatest defensive team, and they have guys that's not reliable and dependable sometimes, especially in the big games against the big opponents. But, when it comes to talent, they still have enough to be a playoff team and to be one of the better teams in the Western Conference. And people still feel like they are believing in this Lakers team because they have shown that they can be a tough team to beat and they can rise to occasions and step their game up and play at another level when their role players are hitting their shots and moving the basketball and also making shots in the offense in general. And if they can do that, they can be a tough out and a tough team to eliminate. And we have seen that in the past too with this duo. Being healthy, they're dangerous. The Clippers, they have been hit or miss mainly because they're older than a lot of other teams, and they're relying on some of the old things too to come to pass and to use the past for a modern version of it in the present. But they're 19-15. They are 5-5 in their last 10. They lost their last two games. 14-14 in the conference, 5-2 in the division, 8-9 away from home, and 11-6 at home. Kawhi Leonard supposed to be coming back possibly January 4th, and it's going to be interesting to see what much of a difference he's going to make. But James Harden has been playing. He's not Houston James Harden. He's not even Philly James Harden, but he's still a great starter and a great guy that you can have the ball in his hands and he can make plays. Norman Powell is having an all-star caliber season. He really stepped up his play and been playing above average. Zubac has been really good rebounding the ball and being a better part of the offense and showing you that he can do it consistently, and he did that all season. Some of their role players have stepped up, like Porter or Chris Dunn, defending well and staying out the way if he doesn't have a shot, or just playing great team basketball in general. And I like what the Clippers have done with what they have. Like, they haven't really had the greatest talent, but they also don't use that as an excuse. And that's why they're seventh, and why they still have a chance to be higher in the standings by the end of the season. They have a good group of guys that understand who they are and what they're trying to do and what they're about. And that's why they've been winning games, because they're not really shying away from that. Minnesota, they're 17-16. They're 5-5 in their last 10, and they lost their last two games. They're 14-10 in the conference, 2-3 in the division, 8-9 away, and 9-7 at home. And they have been a team that's been tough to watch. They play a tough brand of basketball where they hold the ball a lot, they dribble a lot, they shoot a lot of threes, they take a lot of shots that the defense want them to take, and sometimes they're making them, sometimes they're missing them, but they don't really do it throughout the whole four quarters that you need to do to be able to win a game and help keep your rhythm going. And Rudy Gobert hasn't really been dominating the boards or dominating the paint lately. Mike Conley hasn't really been the best offensive player that they need him to be to continue to help them win. And I also feel like Randall hasn't been the greatest fit. He hasn't been the worst fit either, but he hasn't really made this team better, and he hasn't really made this team greater. It actually makes the team look worse how they play now. And then you got Anthony Edwards always complaining about what they ain't doing and what they can't do and what they should be doing, and he's a part of the problem too. and he knows it. That's why you always say we. But that's not the type of leadership that you need to correct the problem so you can be a better team. And that's one of their worst problems right now is their communication and their accountability and knowing their responsibility is to be in the best shape, playing the best games that they can play to put themselves in the best position to win games. And if they're going to continue to air it out through the media and they're going to continue not to hold themselves accountable to make these changes that's needed and necessary to be able to help them win games again, then this team is just going to be a lost cause, just going out there to compete for their own contracts and their own livelihood in the NBA and nothing else. They look like an individual team that just moving the ball when they want to or where they can't score. And other than that, they're just playing basketball, not real NBA team basketball. And that's the saddest part about the Wolves as of right now. The Golden State Warriors, they also are 17-16. They're 3-7 in their last 10. They won their last game. They're 13-12 in the conference. They're 1-5 in the division, which is tough to see. They're also 8-8 away. That's bad. And they're only 9-8 at home. They got off to a really good start in October and November. They're tapered off so far this year. Their offense hasn't been as great. Buddy Hield hasn't been as good. Steph Curry has had some bad games that you want to forget about, but it just shows you that he has been aging and he hasn't been as dominant as he usually be. We knew that Steph was going to have to score and facilitate more and trust his teammates more because he's really the only option they have to really pay attention to when it comes to trying to take over a game or dominate a game. And that's what you prepare for is how to make Steph as useless as he can be and make the other guys around him beat you. And guys like Kuminga has played real well since Buddy Hield has went cold. Andrew Wiggins has been, dependable, but he also hasn't been that great offensively. Draymond defense still is there. His playmaking is still there, and he still knows where to be at on the court offensively and defensively, even though he's not really playing as much because he is older. And Trey Jackson-Davis has been one of the better players that we got to highlight because everybody knew they needed a big man, and he has been serviceable and been good enough to start, and he is a big, long body and very physical. And they other guys that they picked up hasn't been playing the way that they need to, but they also hasn't been playing, they're older now, so they're not going to be playing and they're not going to be as hungry as they were before. And I think that that's been a problem too. A lot of guys are playing too safe and a little bit too nonchalant, and you can't really do that in the NBA. And that's been one of the problems with their bench. And that's been one of the problems with the team in general. It seemed like they just need somebody to poke them or hit them a little bit for them to wake up, or they need to get knocked out in the beginning of a game for them to wake up sometimes and let them know that, oh, wait, we can't turn it on. We can't hit a bunch of shots and we can't shoot a bunch of threes and go crazy. They was doing it a little bit in the beginning of the year, but teams are more prepared for that. And now you only really get the Curry flurry. And that means he's going to be the one hitting you with a bunch of shots, not the entire team or not two or three players. And that's been another reason why they haven't been beating teams and blowing out teams the way that they usually do, because their three-point shooting and their three-point dependency has been down. And they've been having to switch it up a little bit more. And since they don't have that as an option, the Warriors' brand of basketball has been a little bit of a detriment because they just don't have the personnel to be able to play the style that they want to. And their offensive players are just not as great as they used to be on those championship teams. And they just have to continue to play with what they have, and it's just not as good enough as it used to be. The San Antonio Spurs, they're 17-16 also. They're 6-4 in their last 10. They won their last game. They're 14-13 in the conference, 2-4 in the division, 5-9 away from home, 12-7 at home. Victor Wembanyama is the main story with this team. If he plays well and he dominates, they have a good chance of beating anybody. He's been doing that throughout the season. He can rebound, he can shoot, he can hit mid-ranges. He's starting to be able to hit tougher shots because of his length and because of his height, and he's using that to the advantage because he can shoot over anybody. But he hasn't been attacking the paint as much. He hasn't been getting to the free throw line as much, and that's unfortunate because, he has so many things that he can use to his advantage even in the paint, and we just don't see that enough. I know he's trying to stay healthy. I know he's trying to play smarter, not harder. which is understandable. But you also want to have the longevity of your career too. So I can see that being a reason. But I think it's been hurting his team a little bit because if you're not playing inside out, you kind of just playing on the outside. And they do have guys like Harrison and Chris Paul that can knock down shots, but they're not as aggressive as they used to be. So they just relying on Wemby to do a lot of those things and allow him to set up things more. And that's what happens when you're the best player on the team. People rely on you more and they go to you more, and you want those moments and you want those opportunities. And that's probably the main reason why he's going to be an all-star this year. But it's also a clunky type of offense that some of these guys just don't fit or just don't play well or just don't understand what they should and shouldn't be doing each and every possession. And that's what happened when you're learning teammates. They had a lot of new guys implemented on this team, and they had to figure out where they fit and what they do with this particular lineup. And they haven't really played with a center like Wemby, and he's a one of one, so it makes sense. But that's what's been the growing pains of this team, is just figuring out what works and what doesn't work, what lineups work and what doesn't work. And when they started the season, they had a lot of their important pieces missing and not really playing that many games. And now they got to implement them and try to find a way to make them happy and find a good fit and a good balance for what they need to do as a team on both ends of the court. And that's why the long season helps sometimes, because you can figure these things out before the playoffs happen, and it can make you a better team in the playoffs than what you were in the regular season. And if they can get to the playoffs, we'll see, because they'll be a tough out too, because they really provide a lot of matchup problems. When they have the right lineups out there and when they have the right defensive lineups out there, and some of their players are becoming better two-way players and are just playing better in general since they've been back. And we just have to see more of it. So I would say the Spurs are a team to continue to watch out for, and they are a legitimate threat to be a playoff team this year earlier than what people think. The Suns have been a little disappointed only because the injuries. They have lost their last three. They also 3-7 in their last 10. They was a team that was barely winning games even in the beginning of the season. They was barely getting by. They was barely pulling them out. And their record was great because they was getting it done. And you have to give them credit because they still was winning those games and putting themselves in a position to win those games. And they did. But it just didn't age well because they were struggling early on, and then the injuries didn't really help that. And now they have to fight their way back up to the top of the mountain, which is very tough to do when you have older players that already don't fit the greatest on this roster. But they're 13-10 in the conference and 5-4 in the division, and they're 5-9 away from home, and they're 10-8 at home. And I like what the Suns have been about, and I like what they have done when they have changed this roster drastically a little bit with the personnel that they added to this roster, particularly this year after last year didn't go their way. But you do kind of wonder, what is this team trying to do and what are they really about sometimes. Different timeline, like Devin Booker still in his 20s and Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal are older, and you see how far away from a championship that they were last year, being swept by the Minnesota Timberwolves. And I don't really think this team is that much better. I know that they play better and they fit better because they have more time together and they put some more pieces that make sense around this threesome of Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, and Kevin Durant. But I also feel like that threesome isn't as good as it needs to be a championship team. So it do make you wonder, what are they really doing when it's showing you that this team isn't good enough to win a championship? They're good enough to make the playoffs. They're good enough to beat, the good, the bad, and the ugly in the league, but they have also shown that they're not really good enough to beat the best of the best, and that's what you have to do if you win the playoffs, and that's what you have to do if you're trying to win a championship. And that's what I was saying when Kevin Durant got traded to Phoenix. I didn't really think that they was going to win a championship. And I was one of the very few people that said that. And we're 3 years into the Kevin Durant saga with the Suns, and they still look far away from getting that done. And Kevin Durant has been more injury prone than ever, especially after he got injured in Golden State. And ever since then, he hasn't been able to stay healthy enough. And, he has been able to play in the playoffs, which is always a good thing because you want your best players healthy around playoff time. But this team still doesn't really look like a legitimate contender. Even when they had one of the best records in the NBA earlier this year, they still look like they were struggling to beat even some of the bad or good teams in the league. and that just lets you know that they're one of them. And it's not the worst situation to be in until you realize that you probably have no chance of winning the title, and you got a lot of Asian stars that teams really don't want to give up a lot for, to get them to put them on their team because they think they're going to get the same result. So you're basically stuck in this situation that you put yourself in, and you realize there's no easy way to get out of it besides riding it out. And then you realize you didn't get what you thought you was going to get out of it, and then you have to start all over again and try to find another superstar to build around because you built around the wrong ones. And this team just isn't where it needs to be defensively either to be taking it serious as a contender either way, even in the beginning of the season when their record was better. But, we'll see how well they play now that Devin Booker is back healthy and Bradley Beal will be back and Kevin Durant will be back, and hopefully they can stay healthy for the long term, this year and as we get closer to the playoffs so we can see what they really can do. But based off what I have seen so far this year, the Suns are about what I think that they were going to be. Just a team that's good enough to beat the teams that they should, and they're going to be good enough to make the playoffs, but not really do anything in the playoffs besides make it, even if they have to win in the play-in tournament to get in. The Sacramento Kings is really no different. They added DeMar DeRozan, which wasn't a bad thing, but it also didn't put them over the top. It didn't solve a lot of their problems. It didn't change a lot of things for this team. It just gave them another option that they can use when things go wrong for Sabonis or Fox, or when they go to the bench. They have a guy like Malik Monk that they can start now, and they can have a ball can hand it to a guy that can put it in there without them running a set or a play for a guy, and a guy that can get to the free throw line. And those things do help you, and it does make you a better team, but it didn't really answer their defensive problems. It didn't really make them a significantly better offensive team, and it didn't make them a significantly better basketball team. And we kind of knew that would be the situation, but we didn't think the Kings would be playing this bad with or without Mike Brown. I don't think he was a big part of the problem. I just think the Kings roster wasn't good enough to compete with the best of the West, and I thought that was the problem. But they didn't address that, and it's hard to do it because a lot of players don't want to play for Sacramento, and even De'Aaron Fox wasn't even in the rush to sign the extension. But they did win their last 2 games, and they are 4-6 in the last 10. They're 11-14 in the conference, 2-6 in the division, 7-7 away from home, and they're 8-12 at home. And they're a team that are in the middle, where they're going to have a bunch of guys that is going to be tradable because they're still young enough and they're still high quality players, but they're not good enough together. Portland, they're 11-22. They lost their last 2 games. They're 3-7 in their last 10. They're 10-20 in the conference, 4-4 in the division, 3-14 away from home, and 8-8 at home. And the Blazers, they are a young team that's very spoinky, and they really come at you and try to hit you hard. They're not the greatest shooting team. They rely on a lot of tough shots. They don't have the greatest shot makers and the shot creators, but they do have a team that has some talent, and you do have to get up for them because they can make things tough. They can make things interesting. They still trying to figure out what's their closing lineup, what's their winning lineup, and they still trying to figure out who's worth keeping and who worth letting go, as they're still rebuilding for the future while still trying to compete for games now. And they only win in games because they have a decent amount of talent, and they have some guys that can really play, and that does help you win games even against the bad teams. You might be a bad team, but you might have to beat a bad team. On some games, you might have to beat some good teams on some days, and the Blazers are good enough to do that. That's why they already won double-figure games, and that's about it on them. The Utah Jazz, they're 7-25. They're 2-8 in their last 10. They lost 5 in a row. They're 3-21 in the conference, 1-5 in the division, 5-13 away from home, and 2-12 at home. That's sad. It's tough if you're a Jazz fan because there's no real way to get better besides drafting a young player that can take 2 to 3 to 4 years to build a team around and develop his growth and his talent to be the best player he can be, to help impact winning at the NBA level. They have some great complementary players that can shoot, that can rebound, that can protect the rim, and I think that that's good to see. And they got some good screen setters too, but they really need a great player to come in that can score and make the job easier for their teammates and still be able to be dominant. And if they get a player like that, they don't really have to do too much trading. They don't really have to do too much getting rid of talent. They just have to find that guy and implement him into this team, and this team can be one of the better ones right away. New Orleans, they had injury problems. Nobody thought the New Orleans Pelicans would be this bad, even being the worst team in the NBA. Nobody seen that coming, but it's mainly because of injuries, which we knew that they always had that problem, especially with Zion Williamson, and he hasn't really played at all this year again. And then Ingram goes down, then McCollum goes down, then DeJounte goes down. We don't even know how this team is going to play, how they are going to be, because we haven't even seen them stay healthy enough to find that out. And that's been the most disappointing thing this year, is that we haven't seen enough of the Pelicans, even though we really want to. And now Zion is on a trading block because he can't stay healthy, which is absolutely ridiculous. But we knew that that was one of his biggest flaws, was his weight and the fact that he's a very physical player, which can result into a lot of lower body and upper body injuries if you play too hard and you're banging against 7 footers and 6'10" guys going full strength, going full power, and getting hung up in the air. Is a good chance of you getting injured, and that's the type of style he likes to play. He likes the physical play. He likes the interior play. And they have had some bright spots like Eve Misi, and they have gotten some guys back, but they really haven't helped with themselves by winning, because they lost 11 in a row and they're 0-10 in their last 10, even with guys coming back and getting healthier. So this team is basically a lost cause. They're going to be one of the most disappointing teams, if not the most disappointing team, because they had a lot of potential. They had a lot of things that people was prepared for and wanted to see, and we wanted to see them make it to the playoffs again, so we can see Zion in the playoffs for the first time. But all that stuff is not going to happen because of injuries, and it sucks, and it hurts, because as a basketball fan, I do want to see this team play together. I do want to see how this team plays. I do want to see if Zion and DeJounte and this type of players made the team better, and we just couldn't get it. We kept getting the opposite, and it sucks. Even though I'm not a Pelican fan, I'm just a fan of basketball too, and I just want to see something different and something that's entertaining, and that's what the Pelicans are. But we just couldn't see them at their best. And they're 3-17 in the conference. They're 0-6 in the division. They're 1-15 away from home. They only 4-14 at home, and they just have been completely embarrassing to watch, and one of the worst teams, if not the worst team, probably in the NBA. And it's just sad to know it and sad to see it, and it's sad to even admit it, because that's not what I wanted to see this year. I wanted them to be at their best, and that would have been good for the league, and it would have been good for viewership. But it's not reality now, because they're not the team that we wanted them to be, which is, the opposite. That exactly, the exactness of it happening sucks. Man, it's just tough watching those Pelicans, man. Watching all that talent they was able to get, and seeing it each and every year that they can't keep their best player and their best players on the court long enough. And even when they wasn't doing it, they was still making the playoffs, showing you how good that they can be in the NBA when they're healthy, and we just can't see it long enough. And this year was one of the worst things to happen. It's just, man, it just blown up. Everything that they put together in the off season, all the excitement that they had going into this season, all just blew to smithereens right away when the season started. And it's crazy that we didn't even get 10 games with this roster fully healthy, and it's been over 30 games already played. We're almost at the half point of the season. So this is the most disappointing team in the NBA, because of the letdown of seeing them all be injured. Not just Zion. You can't put it on Zion. The entire starting lineup was injured for a long period of time, and that just flat out sucks. Other than that, comment, like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell for more analysis. I make videos just like this in different varieties. If you like these type of videos, I make conversation for basketball, and I have more of them on my channel already. Over 3,000 videos I already have made. Also, I have tributes of legends, current players, rookies, and potential future stars. Also do the mock drafts and draft coverage. So if you love that type of content and you want more NBA content, I have that all on my channel too already. Plus, I'm going to continue to make videos too. So make sure you subscribe if you like that type of content. Not only that, thanks for watching my channel. Thanks for checking out my video. Thanks for supporting it any way that you could. I appreciate it. And thanks for continuing to watch and check out everything that I put out and loving it for what it is. Thanks for just being fans of what I do. Other than that, see you guys hopefully later today with more instant analysis. This is the Rundown, one of you guys' favorite series, and it's back this year too. And hopefully you guys enjoying the NBA season. Even though it's been a lot of injuries and a lot of blowouts lately, we still need to continue to support it because it's a beautiful game of basketball. It's so important to the fun that we have in life. Even if we playing, but it's also fun to watch. And analysis is one of the best things to happen. And that's why so many people are loving it and enjoying it for what it is, because that's how fun the game of basketball is, that we want to talk about it. We want to hear things about it. We want to enjoy time with it. And we just have to continue to do that. And that's all we have to do to keep the NBA in a healthy space. See you guys later.